Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to season 2 of the Seth-Talk-Show. Yep, that's right. We're coming back for one episode of season 2. We haven't done any episodes for the rest of the year, but this will be a great one. Anyway, we're going to be rolling the intro in 3, 2, 1. Roll the intro! Alright, welcome back, guys. In today's talk show, we're going to be answering some questions about nationalism. And, yeah. So, I'm just going to, read off the questions, and then I'll answer them. And then next question, and we'll be done. And it'll be great. Alright, so let's get into question number 1. Alright, question 1. Explain what the words nation and nationalism mean to you. Briefly explain over all the different nations you feel a sense of belonging to. In my opinion, I feel like a nation, some people just say a nation is just like a place or something, but in my opinion, I feel like it's the definition of nation is more like a community of people that all share the same or close to the same identity. Also, it's kind of cool to think about all the different people who came before us to create our history and our traditions and our experiences, because you never really know. You never know all the different kinds of people or families or groups that came before us to create what we know and love today. A nation can be this is what we were talking about for the tattoo project. A nation can be looked at in a bunch of different ways, through ethnic or religious or political lenses. But in general, I feel a nation is more described as a collective identity between a bunch of people. Nationalism, on the other hand, is technically defined as the sense of pride and loyalty towards a nation, but that's basically just saying that nationalism is a person's investment and the want to promote and give the best to their nation. Nationalism is also a great way to inspire people and get them to work together just for the greater good of their nation. But also, when I was researching for the essay that we just did, I also was looking at a bunch of different causes to what nationalism can cause, and lots of the time, even though nationalism can start out good and have good intentions, lots of the time it goes really far downhill and ends up just creating a lot of violence and stuff. For instance, with the world wars and stuff, it's all starts out with nationalism and the want for the singular person to just have the greatest impact on their country, but lots of the time it leads into aggressive expansion, and then it just goes all to crap. For me, I feel a very strong connection to Canada because that's literally where I was born, where I spent my entire life, and for the most part, I love the country. Canada would represent my social and my cultural identity, and yeah, I don't know. Living here in Canada is pretty nice. I feel we're pretty lucky to be able to live in a place with so much freedom and with pretty good values and free healthcare. So that's pretty nice too. Also, I feel a decent, pretty big connection to the Christian faith. My faith has been a really big part of my life, and it affects my beliefs and my religious outlook on life. Oh, sorry, I was having a brief part there. It literally just affects my values and my beliefs and my day-to-day choices. And also, it's kind of cool to think being a part of something like that, just being a part of Christian faith, it connects you with a huge array of people from all across the world because you all kind of believe something similar. So I don't know, that's also a kind of cool thing to think about. And it also just isn't, it's not just a personal thing because it can connect me to generations of my family that all came before me that all believe the same thing. So it's also a cool way to connect to that, and I think it adds some pretty cool layers to my identity and sense of belonging. Question 2. Question 2. If you had to describe Canada to someone using only 5 words, then what would they be? Provide a brief rationale for each of your words. All right. So I got 5 words written out right here. Don't worry, I don't have any of the rationales written out. That's all coming from right here. Anyway, let's begin. My first word is diverse. So I feel like this is like one that would come to a lot of people's head when we're talking about Canada. It's like Canada is like really known for its multiculturalism, and it welcomes people from all across the world of all different backgrounds to come in and live in Canada. Like, for example, I work at Tim Hortons in the mall. So like just like working there, I met so many different new people from all across the world, and it's really cool. Like, I actually enjoy working there because you get to learn about all the different cultures from around the world. And like my coworker who's from India brought me this like souvenir back when she went to India. So I have this like it's like this little dog that like wobbles when you put it on your dashboard when you drive, and it's from India. So that's pretty cool. My second word is welcoming. Another thing that Canada is like really known for is its hospitality and like friendly demeanor. We kind of have like a reputation for just being like the really like nice and polite people, you know, like like stereotypical Canadians. And like, I don't know, I feel like we're really welcoming to like new people, and it helps create like a sense of like invitation and like, I don't know, like a warm feeling, you know. My third word is resilient. I feel like Canadians are pretty well known for being resilient. I mean, all you have to do is just take a look at our weather, right? Like, one day it could be -40. We could be freezing our butts off outside, and then the next day, oh my gosh, it feels like a tornado is about to hit your house. You're gonna blow away when you walk out the door. And then the next day after that, it's like you're walking through a desert. Like, we have to be pretty resilient to go through that, right? All right. My next word is natural. Like, this is kind of an odd word, but I don't know. When I think of like Canada's like landscape and just like the feeling you get when you think about Canada, natural is kind of like a good word. Like, I don't know. I went to like BC a couple of times, like a bunch of years ago, but it's just like walking around there and like walking through all like the parks and lakes and stuff, you just like feel like it's like a fresh feeling, you know, like all the trees and all the lakes and the smells. It just feels like natural and fresh and beautiful, and I think that's a pretty good word to describe Canada. And now, my fifth word, the Edmonton Oilers, baby, we're gonna win the Stanley Cup. Woo! Now listen, I know we're down 2-0 right now when I'm filming this, but hey, we'll bring it back. I believe. We'll bring it back. Stanley Cup is coming home, baby. Let's go. Next question. Explain why Canada is often described as a multi-nation. Explain at least 2 case studies which explain contending loyalties within Canada. All right. So I think Canada is described as a multi-nation because, like we literally just talked about in the last question, Canada is a really diverse place, and we have different people from all around the world with a bunch of different cultures and languages and everything like that. Contending loyalties have a lot of great examples that I found that we can look at for Canada, but one of the bigger ones that I'd like to look at is between the French and the English Canadians. Now, historically, the French-speaking people of Canada have fought really hard to like preserve their language and culture in a country that's mostly people that speak English. But with that is like, it comes a lot of like built up anger and tension and stuff, because if you kind of think about it, it's kind of hard to be like a minority in a whole country that's English, and you just have Quebec over here that's like the French speaking. So yeah, there's a lot of like built up tension and stuff, which led historically to like a bunch of different political movements and stuff to try and fix things, I guess. I don't really know if that's a great way to put it, but there's a bunch of different revolutions and stuff, like the Quiet Revolution in the 1960s, which basically what happened is they wanted to like modernize Quebec while also keeping French identity, I guess. I don't really know how else to explain it. We can also see this in the two referendums of 1980 and 1995, I think. Neither of them like actually resulted in Quebec leaving Canada, but we never really know what will happen in the future, and it's still a pretty good example of contending loyalties. Another thing that I found that we can look at for contending loyalties is Canada's indigenous population, like versus the Canadian government. Historically, indigenous people have for a really long time fought for recognition of their rights and land claims and self-governance, and with all the horrible things that the Canadian government has done in the past, like residential schools and colonization and the Indian Act, which are all just horrible things, and I actually hate like looking at all that, because I just can't believe that people would like be able to do that to another group of people. At the end of the day, we're all just humans, so it's kind of hard. And it all left like a pretty bad, like bitter taste in everyone's mouth, because I don't know, like no one, it's just bad. And even though lots of things have been done to try and like not fix it again, but just like reconcile for these acts, there isn't really a whole lot we can do to make it completely better, because at the end of the day, it still happened and we still did it, and there isn't like a lot of things we can do to completely fix it. But I think that the best we can do is just address it, learn about what happened, and try and reconcile. So yeah, I think that's another pretty good case study for contending loyalties. All right, next question. I need to be going fast because like I'm like putting these clips in as I film them, and it's like, God damn, we're like going overtime here, so I'll try and hurry it up. But I'm literally wasting time as I'm saying this. Okay, but next question. Question 4. To what extent should national interests be sacrificed for international interest? Use at least 2 case studies or examples to support your response. All right. National interest sacrifice. All right. So I think it's always like really hard to tell like what a good balance would be between national and international interests, because like on one hand you want your nation to succeed and do well and benefit from everything, but at the same time you can't have that if the entire world is falling apart. So we also need to make sure that the world is alive and well, and that we can solve issues like that. A good case study that I found that we could use for this would be the Paris Agreement on climate change. Basically, what happened here is in 2015, a bunch of countries from all around the world came together, and basically their goal was just to try and prevent global warming and climate change. I think it was like they wanted to make it sure that it was like below like 2 degrees or something of whatever it usually is. This agreement made countries, this agreement was like it wanted countries to basically set goals and targets for trying to reduce greenhouse gases that were coming out of their country, and the hope was that it will prevent global warming in the entire world, which is what we need. I don't know if it's working or if it has worked. I didn't really look it up, but I hope it is. So yeah. This agreement shows that countries can and do come together lots of the time to work together, and I feel like that's definitely needed if we want to all live together in this world and solve issues that one nation or country couldn't solve on their own. So I think it's pretty important. And another example that I was thinking about for this could be the creation of the United Nations. Right after World War II, the United Nations was created, and basically what they wanted to do is just right after World War, it was horrible. World War II, so much horrible stuff, and they're like, we need to let this never happen again. So they created the United Nations, and their goal is just to basically prevent like global conflict between different people. And they made a charter that was put in place to make sure that every country recognizes the importance of like cooperating together to solve issues and solve internal affairs without breaking into world war again. So yeah. Alrighty. It's a new day, as you can see. New clothes. I kind of ran out of time last night, so we have to continue this on the next day. Anyways, the next question is, what do you think are the most significant lessons from the history of nationalism that all people should know? You must include reflections on Canadian and global history. Okay, so let me just look at the question one more time. All right. So the most important lessons from nationalism that I think we can learn from, I think again we can like look at this topic of like diversity again. I think that might be the most important lesson that we can kind of see out of at least Canada, because like it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a common theme that we see with Canada, and like lots of the stuff about Canada has to do with diversity, and I think that's a really cool thing about Canada. But Canada has like this, it's like a multicultural policy which was adopted in like late 1900s, and it promotes the idea that every single cultural group in Canada is equal, no matter what. It doesn't matter where you came from, doesn't matter how you got here. It matters, all that matters is that we're all equal. And I think that's a really good I don't know, I guess it has to deal with nationalism, and I think that's a pretty cool like lesson, I guess, that we can learn from that. Another one that we can think about is, like, I think I talked about this already in the other question, but the danger of like exclusion in nationalism. Like the rise of nationalism in like Europe and stuff and led to a lot of really bad things, just like both world wars and the Holocaust, and all of this was because at the beginning was all because of exclusion and people being racist or xenophobic or all that stuff, and just being like excluding a certain group of people, and then all this other stuff comes out of that, and it's just like horrible to think about. So I think another lesson that we can learn from nationalism is to avoid that kind of stuff and like learn from people's past mistakes. And yeah, and I think that actually leads into a good third one. We can also, another good lesson we can learn from nationalism in Canada is the idea of reconciliation in Canada, because in Canada we've done a lot of bad stuff to like the indigenous people, and I think that that's really important, like a really good lesson that we can learn from our past mistakes, that we should be able to reconcile and like acknowledge our past wrongs. So yeah, I think that's the last one that I'll talk about. All right, next question is, what do you think will be the most significant change our country will see in the next 50 years? So this one, like, I don't know. I feel like one of the things that's going to change a lot in our country in the next 50 years is just like the use of AI. And I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit, because in some ways, like, it's kind of scary, you know, like even like at the beginning of last year, like none of us would have expected like all the different crazy things that AI can do right now. And like, that's all just like crazy stuff that we've never seen before. Like if you took me from last year, at the beginning of last year, and was like, do you know that next year you'll be able to send a picture to your AI and it'll be able to read the entire picture, it'll be able to read your entire document and provide you responses based on that? I'd be like, no. Like, I remember when I was first looking at like ChatGPT when it like first came out and stuff, and I asked it to write me like song lyrics, and it just like spit out the whole song lyrics. I was like, what? Like, that's crazy. And I think, I don't know, I feel like it's doing more harm than good in our world. And it's kind of like with everything new. Like when the internet was invented, with all this kind of stuff, it takes us a while to like adapt to it. And I think it's going to be the same with AI, because there's definitely going to have to be like rules and regulations and laws on how we can use it, so it like doesn't take everyone's job. Or like, the one thing that I don't like is like it can kind of like take away people's like originality, you know, like people who like do art for a living, or people who make music, or people who write poetry. Like it kind of like takes away from that kind of, I guess, because you you can like do the same stuff with AI, and especially if it keeps getting better and better, like eventually you won't even be able to tell the difference between like a human picture and an AI picture. And I don't like that. I feel like there should definitely be some rules and regulations around that so that doesn't happen. But I think in the next 50 years we'll definitely see a lot of that, as well as, I don't know, with the whole like inflation thing. I had to spend $65 on gas the other day, and like before that it's always been like 50. It started at 50, going up to 55, going up, now it's like 60, and that's crazy. And I hope that we can somehow find a way to fix that, because inflation sucks. But yeah, I think that would be one of the most significant ways that our country will change. All right, we're finally here. Let's go. Last question. What did you learn about yourself as you studied nationalism? Consider the following questions. What did you learn about yourself and how you learn? In what ways has this course changed your worldview? What have you learned that you think will stick with you? And how could you use what you've learned to help you become a better citizen? All right, so let's start with the first one. What did you learn about yourself and how you learn? I think in this class, I think that one thing that I learned about myself is that I always like value understanding like different perspectives of stuff, and like looking at different people's worldview and kind of how they see things. Because at the end of the day, it's like people see like different issues in different ways, and everyone's always going to have their own unique experience, and it's kind of hard to like form your own opinion without being able to see like all the different sides and perspectives to the issue, or not even issue, but just anything. And I think another thing of basically like how I learn, I think one thing that I learned this year is that it's really easy for me to like learn stuff when we can like relate concepts to like real world examples, and I can kind of see like the concept that we're learning in action in like an actual like real world example that happened or is happening or has happened. And yeah, I think that's one way that I can learn a little bit easier. The next one is, in what way has this course changed your worldview? I think that this course has made me like a lot more aware of all the issues that surround nationalism, and like how it shapes people and how it affects people in places and just on the day to day. And also another thing, like I never really realized how like nationalism in general can be like good and bad like simultaneously. So I think that's a pretty big way that it changed how I view the world. What have you learned that you think will stick with you? I guess I can say the same thing. Like the same idea with nationalism being a force of good and evil at the same time. And I think like what we learn how to like navigate it and like balance the two goods and evils is a pretty important thing that I learned this year. And maybe the importance, I like the idea of like the importance of working together as like different nations. Like even though you might have different views or different ideas on how things should be run, I think it's really important that countries and nations work together to solve the big issues that we can't really solve by ourselves all the time. So it's just better than being selfish and trying for like one country to do everything by themselves. So I think that's a pretty good thing that will stick with me in further years. And the last one, how could you use what you've learned to help you become a better citizen? I think I can use a lot of the stuff about like diversity and stuff to be a better person, because I don't know, you see lots of people in this world, even though like lots of people are just not like good, I guess, like they just, I don't know how to like put it into words, but like they're just not like able to grasp the idea of diversity and that everyone's equal no matter what. And I think that's like a really important thing that I like to live by, is just we're all humans at the end of the day. Everyone's the same. Like we all have our different personalities and stuff, and that's what makes us unique. But at the end of the day, we're all just humans, and we're all live together on this earth, so everyone should be treated equally. And another thing that could help me be a better person would be maybe like I guess I can say the same thing again, like just the significance of national and international cooperation, and just being able to work with people even though they might not have the same view as you or the same ideals of you. And this is kind of like good in my own life, because I'm like really introverted, and I hate doing stuff in groups work where I have to like use other people's ideas, because maybe they don't see things the exact way as I do, or they don't want to do things the exact same that I would do them. And it's really hard for me to like just be able to do that and like take other people's ideas that aren't my own, which is kind of selfish. And I feel like I can learn a lot from just like actual countries having to do this too, because even though you don't agree with people sometimes, it's still better to work together to be more efficient and solve issues that you can't really solve like completely by yourself. So I think that will help me become a better person. Yeah. All right, that's it. That's all the questions we did. I'm sorry, I'm like looking at the thing right now and it says 26 minutes, so I'm sorry that you just have to sit through all that. I didn't mean to make it so long, and I know like you were complaining about the other person's that was really long and you didn't want to sit through that, so I'm sorry. I didn't know how long I should be like taking to answer all the questions, so I kind of just yapped through everything, and then it ended up being pretty long, so I'm sorry. I just want to say thank you, Elena, for being a great teacher this year. I learned a lot from you, and even though I didn't like participate that much in class discussions, and maybe like wasn't the most involved in stuff, I just want to let you know that you did a really good job, and I appreciate everything that you've done. So thank you. And yeah, that's gonna be it for the video. Thank you for tuning in to season 2 of the Seth-Talk-Show. I appreciate it. And yeah, I guess we'll have to see you guys back in season 3. That was a W season, right? All right. Bye.